Drivers will take you wherever you want to go. You know what I'm saying? I'll just put you on a little game. The drivers are going to try to rip you off. What I usually do is I'll go into Uber and...
Güey, pero... Ay, mi madre, pero tiene que ser loco porque te estoy piteando.
What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Dion. A travel adventure is underway. Just grab a water, gotta stay hydrated. I wanna talk with you guys about the difference between renting a car and ordering a taxi when traveling abroad, and what my recommendation is. Let's get to it. The weather is beautiful today. Wow. Okay, so there's a few key differences with taxi versus rental car. You can do either. You know, I would say on the affordability scale, both are affordable. But let me get past this station here. It's kind of noisy. Let's just pause for a second, okay? There's a couple of things I want to point out in this shot. Number one, notice the truck in the background parked backwards. This used to be a pet peeve of mine when I bought my first house. People would park in front of my house backwards and I couldn't get out the driveway. Got on my nerves. When you get up in these back streets, up in the pueblos, people park all kinds of random kind of ways. And this is the first point that I'm trying to make. When you travel internationally, it's a whole different world out there when it comes to transportation. And the second thing I want to point out is the motorcycles. In the United States, we call them motorcycles. Anybody know what they're called in other countries? We're going to reveal that in a second. But anyway, the point that I'm trying to make is this decision as to what type of transportation you use when you travel internationally can make or break your trip. So I'm going to break down the biggest lessons I've learned from my years of traveling internationally when it comes to transportation. It's going to make your trip so much easier, way less stress. I wish I knew these things when I first started traveling. But anyway, let's jump back into the video. We got some fresh fruit going in here in a second. That's cool. Let's start with the rental car service first, because I think that's the one that most people kind of wrestle with, is whether they should get a rental car. You can rent a car. Depends on what you're doing. But definitely, we're gonna see if this traffic ever gives me a break across the street. In a place like the Dominican Republic, might not be the best idea. Sometimes you just gotta gun it. It's really pretty down here. If you're gonna come to the Dominican Republic, you're going to face a lot of crazy traffic. It may not be the best thing for, a low stress trip. You can certainly do it, but you gotta really know where you're going down here, because you gotta be able to make decisive choices. It's not a good area for you to just be kind of meandering. If you're gonna be out in traffic, you definitely wanna make sure you know where you're going. Look how beautiful this is. Let's just hang out down here for a little bit. I think number one, you would want a rental car if you're gonna be doing like long distance. The drivers, and I've mentioned this before, drivers will take you wherever you wanna go. You know what I'm saying? The drivers will take you to other cities if you got enough money. But the further, just like with anything with economics, the economics start to break down the further out you go. So if you're gonna be traveling from like Santo Domingo to Punta Cana and back, and you want to explore the island and really, do some wild stuff, like go to, especially if you're going to be doing that over a span of days, like 10 days, then it probably starts to make more sense to just get a rental car. Those would kind of be the only situations in which I would strongly recommend a rental car. Outside of those situations, I would advise that you do not take a rental car. And the reason is that I think it's actually dangerous to drive down here if you're a foreigner. Now let me explain a little bit. If you're a foreigner and you come down here, you rent a car, there's a couple of things that you'll want to understand. Number one is that the traffic is a lot more chaotic down here than it is in most cities in the United States. But unless your traffic is like New York, I would say this is going to be more chaotic to drive in than you're probably used to. So that's the first reason, is it's kind of dangerous. You can very easily get into an accident down here just because people are expecting you to make precise decisions. They don't have a problem honking their horn, cutting you off, going around you.
Güey, pero... Ay, mi madre, pero tienes que ser loco porque te estoy piteando.
So yeah, traffic here is it's different. It's different, man. You got to be locked in and you got to be ready because some crazy stuff can easily happen. I think we got lucky we didn't get hit. Can't make this stuff up. And the majority of the traffic is motos. So motos is like those little motorcycles. I think in some places they call it like motoconcho, a moto car. In a lot of these Latin-based countries, you're gonna have a lot of these motorcycles. So you just want to be aware of those things, okay? Now, public transportation service, number one, you're gonna have a lot less driving anxiety, and I would say just anxiety on your trip will drop down a lot because you've passed that burden on to whoever's taking you places, and it's up to them to drive you there safely, right? So the second reason is it reduces stress by not having a rental car. The third reason is, let's look at the cost. So forget about the cost of like if you injure someone. Let's think about the cost of like you got to rent a rental car. You got to make sure you have your insurance. You've got to make sure that you have money for gasoline. You've got to go to the gas station, all of those things, right? So there's a lot of costs associated with the rental car. In my opinion, cost-wise, I think you're going to save a lot of money if you just use a taxi or an Uber service. Also, you don't need to know Spanish to use a taxi or an Uber. If you're using a taxi, it's going to be a little bit more difficult, but you'll be surprised how many people can speak basic English here. The language barrier drops by a lot. With the rental car service, while you would say, well, you know, the airports, they speak English, yes. But let's say, for example, you need to go to a gas station. You may be asked a few more things that you need to be prepared for. It's not a lot, but it is more than if you just had to tell somebody your address. You know, how much money do you want to put on your car? Maybe they ask you about other services. Maybe you have somebody trying to clean your windows.
Ah, pues espera que te digan.
A lot of the gas stations are full service. There's an attendant at the pump. You don't pump your own gas. Somebody else pumps your gas for you. They'll try to upsell you things, and that's kind of consistent in, oh, look at this crab. That's wild. But anyway, that was pretty cool. So there's just a lot more stuff that you gotta be managing if you rent a car. Just all of those things are just add stress, just adds anxiety when you're in a place that's foreign and you're not necessarily, you know, familiar with the terrain or anything like that. You might run into a checkpoint somewhere and questions are asked about why you're entering past a certain gate. In my opinion, it's just easier to just use a taxi. Now, what taxi services do I recommend? I recommend Uber, if you're in the Dominican Republic, you can use a service called InDrive. InDrive is, it's like Uber, but it's an Uber competitor. That's the best way to put it. It's a great tool for local bargains because generally speaking, on the Uber app, the drivers here in the Dominican Republic, I'll just put you on a little game. The drivers here, they essentially use Uber as like a lead generation tool. So they're on Uber, they'll accept the Uber ride, they'll take the Uber payments. But what they'll do is usually once they get you in their car, they'll offer you a business card or something to that effect and encourage you to contact them off of Uber so that they can take 100% of the money for themselves. It's technically not illegal to contact an Uber driver off of the Uber app, but it is against their company policy. So if you do so, you put the driver at risk of being suspended from violating company guidelines. As a YouTuber, I have to give you the best advice possible, and so I advise you to not contact the drivers off of the app. And there's a few reasons for that. Number one, there could be some fishy activity. You never know if you're dealing with that one person who's trying to get you caught up in some weird situation, or if they're just simply trying to rip you off. However, I will say this. After traveling internationally for almost 10 years, in my experience, the majority of people, they're just trying to get as much money as possible in their pocket. I've met several drivers through a taxi service or a referral who have taken me places that when I tried to get a ride to this location using the Uber app, the driver canceled or bailed out on me. So there is a benefit to working with the local drivers. You just got to use your common sense and find the smart situations in which you would use that. Okay, so let me break down how InDrive works. Uber does a calculation to determine how much a trip should cost from one location to another. A lot of the drivers will argue that Uber miscalculates and they'll ask you for more money at the end of your trip. You don't have to pay them this money, but it's not necessarily a bad thing. It can be treated like a tip almost. On InDrive, the app doesn't calculate the price for you. You declare how much you want to pay. So what I usually do is I'll go into Uber and do the same route to determine how much the market rate is. And then what I usually try to do is maybe go like 20 to 40 pesos under the Uber price. And so you can imagine if you do multiple trips, that starts to save you hundreds of pesos, which is nice. But yeah, InDrive is a nice alternative again because you're going to save money on the actual service. And the reason that is because the drivers on InDrive, most of the time, they're assuming you're local. Another benefit of using the local service is you get to leverage the knowledge of the local driver. They know their way around better than you do because they live here. They know which streets to take. They know how to get around. They're going to save you time. They know where all the speed bumps are at. Speed bumps are a big issue here, dips in the road and stuff like that. Leveraging a local driver means that you get to take advantage of their knowledge of all of those things. All of that stuff just reduces stress. Some of the airport service is unavoidable because they have a monopoly on it and they won't let a lot of the street drivers get into the airport. So unless you know somebody and they're personally picking you up where you're like arranging a ride ahead of time, it's a little more challenging to get like an Uber or something like that into the airport. However, it is possible. Another thing is the public transportation. They have Caribe tours, and there's another service I'll leave in the comments below. So if you have those buses can take you from Santo Domingo to Sosua for like $8. And again, that's like a 4 or 5 hour ride, across the north. So, it just starts to not make economic sense to grab a rental car in that case either. Because again, you're traveling much more economically. And then once you get there, now look, $8 from Santo Domingo to Puerto Plata. We'll just call it 10 to just keep it round. An Uber or a taxi from the bus stop to your room or whatever. And that costs you another $250 to $750. So for less than $20, you can travel from Santo Domingo to your room in Puerto Plata. Like, why would you ever rent a car to do that? It just doesn't make sense, you know? 200 pesos for a trip. That's equivalent to like $2.50 or something like that, you know, give or take a little. A mile or less is gonna be under 200 pesos. 4 miles or less is gonna be under 300, maybe to 400 pesos. I'm giving you guys some game. These are things I've learned from traveling here multiple times. If you wanna go from like Puerto Plata, where I'm at right now, to Sosua, which is about a 20 to 30 minute drive depending on which part of Sosua you want to go to. I would say 800 to 1200 pesos is a safe range from like Puerto Plata to Sosua. So knowing that, it's not really that much money. I mean, a 62 to 1 ratio, right, is what, $10 would be about 600 pesos. So double that. So it's like a $20 ride. It's not that much. Now, obviously you got to, you know, potentially factoring going there and coming back. So you got, you know, a round trip of $40 or so, $40 to $50. It's not that much. So that's kind of what you're looking at. I'd be curious to see how much gas costs here per gallon. But I've had a driver take me on an hour drive out, hour drive back, and that cost me like 3,500 pesos for the whole day. $60 for the whole day. So $30 there, $30 back. Moving around the city, you're looking at, you know, $2 here, $5 there, $10 there. All right. So hopefully this video has been helpful. Let me know if you've rented a car in the Dominican Republic or in another international destination. I'd be curious to know what it's like when you're on vacation. You want to have a good time. You want to be stress-free. You want to be low risk, right? You don't want to be doing all this crazy, stressful stuff to yourself because you're on vacation. You want to have a good time. Lower stress is better, in my opinion. Lower stress equals a better experience. That's generally speaking, that's true. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Would you rent a car when traveling internationally? I don't think I would ever rent a car in the Dominican Republic. If you're flying all the way here from another country, they have an airport in Punta Cana. They have an airport in Santo Domingo. They have an airport in Puerto Plata. So you don't need to drive to those different places. You can just land at the one that you want to be at. It just sounds like a different trip. Beaches everywhere, so why not enjoy the beaches close by you? You do whatever you want. I'm just saying. Wow. Almost slipped, tripped, and fell. Wow, look at that little cove down there.